So your XR650L is ticking you off, or it's having a hard time starting. This is how you're going to fix it. A valve adjustment. Let's get started. Some tools you're going to need is a 10mm hex key, a 6mm hex key, a flathead screwdriver, a 24mm wrench, a 12mm wrench, a 3/8" ratchet, a 12mm socket, a 17mm socket, a feeler gauge, and a torque wrench. So walking right into this, you're going to notice that my gas tank, my seat, and my side covers have already been removed. But that's simply to help reduce the video's length. All I'm doing right here is just removing all four of the valve caps on top of the valve cover. Go ahead and do so. Moving right along, we're going to go to the left side of our engine and we're going to take our hex keys and we're going to pop off these two caps on the left side of the motor. One of them is going to be used to turn over the motor with our 17mm socket, and the other one is the inspection port where we're going to look inside to see where the top dead center is. As I mentioned, we're going to be taking our ratchet and our 17mm socket and we're going to be turning the motor over counterclockwise, and we're going to look for the intake valves to go down and then right back up. That tells us we're on the right stroke. As soon as they go back up, you're going to look into the inspection port and try to find top dead center. Be very slow in turning the motor over. So as you're turning over the motor, you're actually going to be looking inside of this little inspection port here to try to line up the index marker. On the case here, there should be a little dash in the threads, and then there's a line in front of the T. You want those to be perfectly straight together. That tells you you're perfectly top dead center. And then when you go back to the top side of your motor, you can take your hand and hopefully should be a little bit of free play on each one of these tappet adjusters. That's what we're looking for. So before we go adjusting our valves, the very first thing you want to do is actually check your valves. The intake valve should be at 4/1000 of an inch and the exhaust valve should be at 5/1000 of an inch. So this is going to be showing you how to check your valves first. So what you're going to do is you're going to take your feeler gauge and you're going to sweep along the actual rocker arm itself so you can get underneath that tappet screw. You're going to frequently notice that you can't get underneath there because your valves have tightened over time. So to remedy this, you're going to take your 12mm wrench or socket, break loose that lock nut, and then you're going to take the little tappet screw there and back it out a few turns so you have free play to work with. Once I finish backing out the screw, you're going to realize that the free play I have here is excessive. So that's just to show you guys what it looks like once you back it out a few times. However, to get your adjustment right, you're going to want to put your feeler gauge back underneath that tappet screw and tighten it till it's just barely snug. Do it too tight like I just showed and you can't pull your feeler gauge out. Too loose, it'll just slip right out. The perfect adjustment is with your feeler gauge underneath. Think of pulling a credit card out of your wallet. It's not too tight, we're going to be fighting it out, and it's not too loose that your credit cards are going to fall out. That's perfect. So then, to lock your adjustment into place, put a 12mm wrench in place, hold your adjustment with a flathead screwdriver, and tighten it as much as you can with your hand. That way you don't lose your adjustment when we go to use a torque wrench. After you finish holding the adjusting screw and tightening the lock nut, you're going to torque the lock nut down to 18 foot-pounds. After tightening said lock nut, you're going to recheck the valve clearance. The intake valve should be 4/1000 of an inch, and the exhaust valve should be 5/1000 of an inch. After verifying your valve clearance, you can then repeat this process to the other intake valve on the opposite side. If it's not correct, then just repeat this process of loosening the lock nut and then setting your adjustment properly. It may take you a few times if this is your first time doing so. However, after that, we're moving along to the exhaust valves. Just like on our intake valves, before we make any changes here, we're going to check our valves first. We're checking to see if it's 5/1000 of an inch, because if it's good, we don't have to make any changes. But in my case, where it's too tight, I have to make changes. So I'm going to grab my 12mm socket here, and I'm going to break it loose with my ratchet. Following that, I'm going to take that tappet screw and back it out a few turns so I can fit my feeler gauge and I have free play to work with once again. After backing out your tappet screw a few times, you should see a lot more free play to work with now. That's perfect. So, grab your feeler gauge, set it 5/1000 of an inch and your flathead screwdriver, and go ahead and turn it in until you feel it lightly seat onto your feeler gauge. Think again of that credit card in your wallet where you want it to just kind of have that slight drag to it. That tells you you're golden. And then of course you're ready to lock that adjustment into place. Now in order to do that, you're going to go ahead and grab your 12mm wrench and you're going to grab your flathead. And while holding that flathead as still as possible, you're going to turn that lock nut down and tighten it snugly as possible. That way when we put our torque wrench on it, we don't lose our adjustment. After we snug this lock nut down, we're going to grab our torque wrench with our 12mm socket and tighten the lock nut down to 18 foot-pounds. Immediately after doing this, you already know what we're going to do. We're going to grab our feeler gauge and we're going to see if we still have that 5/1000 of an inch tolerance. This is imperative. Just like before, think of yourself pulling a credit card out of a wallet. It should feel just like that. Not too loose, not too tight, just a slight drag. And then of course, repeat that process to the other exhaust valve on the other side. And congratulations, you finished the valve adjustment on your XR650L. So to put things back together, go ahead and take your 4 valve cover caps, put them on hand tight first so you don't strip them out, and then take your 24mm wrench and just snug them up. They don't have to be super tight, just snug. They have an O-ring for a reason. So moving on down, we're going to be reinstalling our timing hole and crankshaft hole caps. Again, start them with your finger, and then take your hex keys and tighten them. These two only need to be snug. Don't over tighten them. I've seen people crack these somehow. I didn't think it was possible until I saw Facebook. And there you have it. It's all back in one piece, and your engine's good to go. So, what I like doing is throwing it on the side cover, throwing it on your gas tank, and seeing if your XR takes you off anymore, and see if it starts better. If it is, congratulations. Anyways, if you found this video useful, I'd appreciate it if you liked and subscribed. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, feel free to put them in the comments down below, and to make sure to check out my other videos. Thank you.